America has had many differences with Iran since the 1979 revolution, but in recent years, the field of differences has expanded. We Americans think of Iran as a mid-sized country that excels at causing trouble. The Iranians have a very different self-conception. They think of their country as a great and ancient civilization. For most of the last 2,500 years that Iran has existed, it's been a much larger and more powerful country than it is today. We think of a marathon as a long race, but the first marathon was to bring news of the desperate battle against the mighty Persian army that was invading Europe. We think of the Taj Mahal as a beautiful building in the middle of India, but every inscription on that building is in the Persian language because that was the language spoken by the rulers who built it. And that is Iranians' conception of their cultural space, from Europe to the middle of India. Even 200 years ago, Iran was about twice the size of what it is today. So for Iranians, today's Iran is a shrunk down version of what's the natural Iranian space. Added to this nationalist element is a religious component as well. When a new dynasty came to power in Iran some 400 years ago, it decided to come up with a way to distinguish Iran from all the rest of the Muslim countries that were under the rule of the Caliph, who was an Ottoman, their historic enemies. And so they made Iran into a Shia country. And that Shia brand of Islam is seen by Iranians today as a sign of their superiority and understanding of Islam over that of other Muslims. And so we have this religious sectarian element, which Iran has so effectively used in recent decades to expand its power in places like Iraq, Yemen, Syria, and Lebanon, where there are very substantial Shia communities. Now, if we take these two strands, this nationalist pride and this religious sense of superiority, we have to add to that, for the Islamic Republic of Iran, another strain which often gets overlooked in U.S. discussion these days, and that is a revolutionary element. The Iranian Revolution of 1979 was indeed a revolution in many senses, and one of them is the sympathy that these revolutionaries had for the same kind of revolutionary ideas we found in a lot of third world anti-Western movements. And so one of the things that Khomeini, the leader of the '79 revolution, did so effectively was find a way to combine these Marxist complaints about imperialism and the oppression from the West with traditional religious language. And so he could repackage the ideas of Marxism in a way that was more acceptable to a great many Iranians. Indeed, even today, the Iranian leadership is powerfully convinced that they represent the oppressed of the earth, standing up to global arrogance, a favorite term for the United States. And so Iran sees it as natural that it can make alliances with places like Venezuela under Hugo Chavez and his successors in standing up to the United States. So if we bring together these three strands of revolutionary ideology, of Shia religious thought, and great nationalist pride, we can see that for many in Iran, and certainly for the Iranian leadership, opposition to the United States, to the West, comes naturally. And there's at least three major issues, one of which, of course, is Iran's nuclear activities. Iran acknowledges it has a very large nuclear program that Iran asserts it has the right to under international agreements. But those international agreements put responsibilities as well as rights for Iran, and Iran hasn't wanted to live up to the responsibility to openly acknowledge, report, and cooperate with international inspections about its nuclear program, and did so only under great pressure. That concern of the United States is that Iran is building facilities which will put it on the brink of having nuclear weapons. Iran has not said that it's going to have nuclear weapons, but it will be on the brink of having them. And this is a matter of great concern to the United States and to many other countries around the world. Another issue which is of particular concern to Iran's neighbors is Iran's destabilizing regional activities, where Iran has supported movements that were either opposed to the government or independent of the government in places like Lebanon, the Palestinian territories, Yemen, and even Iraq, where the government is very friendly to Iran. The Iranian government has supported militias which are only vaguely under the control of the Iraqi authorities. Then another issue which has deeply divided the United States and Iran has been Iran's support for terrorism. Iran has been the leading state sponsor of terrorism for many years. It has sponsored terrorist attacks across Europe, across the Middle East, even in places like Latin America and Southeast Asia. Iran's gotten caught trying to sponsor terrorist attacks in the United States, but none of them have been successful for some years. So these different strands, Iran's support for terrorism, its support for destabilizing regional activities, and its support for disturbing nuclear programs carried out without due attention to the responsibilities that Iran has under international agreements. These are all components of the differences between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran.